Hello everyone, my name is Chris Titley and welcome to the FinTech Australia podcast. The FinTech Australia podcast takes listeners on a deep dive across the FinTech industry in Australia, focusing on the challenges, opportunities and big stories our community faces. Let's get to today's episode. So we're live here in Brisbane with Paul Kang from Entersoft and Matt Almond from Upsure. We're going to be talking all things cybersecurity and insurance. Guys, welcome.
Hey Chris, how are you?
Hey, we've got this multiplayer podcasting going here. It's not too bad actually. So we're in Brisbane, rainy day today, but we're going to be talking all things cybersecurity and insurance. But before we do, we might talk individually. Matt, do you want to give us a little bit of an update on what you're doing at Upsure and how it all works?
Yeah, certainly, Chris, and thanks so much for having us on. So Upsure, look, we're 2.5 years old now. I've come from a 20-year insurance career, and Andrew, the other co-founder, from a more of an entrepreneurial commercialisation background, found a real need to kind of build an insurance brand that focuses on high-growth tech startups and scale-ups. A fair bit of our client base comes from, the tech sector, reg tech, climate tech, but by far our greatest area is in the fintech space. So as opposed to traditional kind of mum and dad brokers, we build bespoke insurance programs for a lot of emerging technology clients, usually your professional indemnity, liability, directors and officers insurance, but more often than not, cyber seems to be a really important part of their program.
Excellent. And Paul, FinTech Australia board member, as well as co-founder of Entersoft. What's going on with Entersoft, mate? How's everything going?
Yeah, going really well. So bit of background, Entersoft, we're a team of ethical hackers, take an offensive approach, focused heavily on application security, so things like web apps, mobile apps, APIs, down to source code review. Back in 2016, we were fortunate to fall into the fintech space. Heavily focusing on emerging tech, right? That's where a lot of digitalization was taking place. So from there, we've been doing a lot of internal R&D, working with a lot of fintech players, a lot of emerging tech companies who are building products for the future, but taking more of an offensive approach and helping them secure the products that they're building. Just
on that topic, before we delve into other things, but your target market is it could be a person that's a two-person business or up to enterprise grade? Yeah, so
cyber is for everyone these days, and anyone can be impacted. So anyone who has a digital presence, we really focus heavily on the companies that are building digital products. So they're building front-facing, say, consumer apps or mobile apps, or integration is happening between organizations at the API layer. So we look at anyone who has a drive or push towards that digital sort of presence. But yeah, we work with anyone from early stage with 2 or 3 people all the way up to large enterprises.
And cybersecurity and threats, etc., have been around for a very long time. Large-scale enterprise companies have had their problems in the past, but obviously now we had a local a case with Optus. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about what happened there, I suppose, and potentially what could be at the forefront now of people's minds after what has happened on a mainstream basis?
Yeah, I think it's created a lot of exposure and awareness Australia-wide, right? So especially when one of your largest telcos does get exploited, and you've got half the population who are probably utilising Optus as well, who are impacted. So definitely, it's created a lot of awareness within the broader community. So, but then it sort of goes down to the business side of things as well, right? People are going to be more aware of, hey, where is my data going? Who's looking after it? How is it being protected? So, no system is secure, but at the same time, I think it creates, and it's an opportunity for organizations to learn and grow from it. Everyone's a target. You're always going to be targeted, but can you get the basics right and make sure that you're aiming for that like 99.99% to uplift the security within an organization?
Yeah, right. And then from that, like the 10,000 that have been released, but also potentially other data that's been compromised, Matt, from an insurance point of view, and people are thinking about identity theft and thinking about theft, thinking about all these sort of things, or ransoms or what might be. From an insurance point of view, what did that Optus case, I suppose, or the ongoing case do to your industry, or made you become aware of a bit more?
Yeah, no, it's spot on. It's look, I think what Paul said kind of really kind of hit the nail on the head. That is a bit of a societal change where people actually, really, they want to know when they're giving data to third parties that it is being protected and it is being looked after. So I think for a lot of people, it would have been a massive eye opener to realise that the second biggest telco in Australia has had such a breach. For us, we've been trying to sell cyber, or and selling a lot of cyber for years, but it's had a fair increase in people coming back saying, hey, we did speak about this, but let's have a bit more of a serious conversation, because this is kind of hitting home. Optus has got cyber insurance, they've got a policy out there, but it's that reputational damage and harm that they've had, and I think a lot of clients of Optus who have lost the data are now thinking, how is that going to be protected? Usually in the event of one of those kind of standard ransomware claims, the ransom is paid, usually through cryptocurrency, and the data's then given back or deleted or buried to a degree. This was a bit of a different situation, I think, in terms of the actual threat actor who got the data in the first place. Not really. I don't think they actually really knew what they fell into, and what they got their hands on. So, yeah, certainly a massive increase. But from us trying to insure cyber insurance for our clients, on the other side of the fence, underwriters are now kind of seeing the exposure lifting quite heavily. So in term premiums and the ability to actually get insurance is going to be much more difficult.
And coming from a person that's not really technical, when you do get a breach and your data has been stolen or distributed elsewhere, things like the driver's license, Medicare, a lot of the states and the governments reacted quickly with trying to change numbers and change codes. Paul, I'm interested to know about, the end game for the particular person, can be, you've changed the locks now, you don't have the keys. Is that is that a thing now? Obviously there was a quick reaction from a government point of view.
Yeah, reaction's important, right? And how quick you can react. So I think some of the measures taken there have been really good to fast track, say, changing your license numbers or getting a new license, etc. And I think everyone's working well on that part. But at the same time, there's millions of records that are out there, right, which can be utilized for various types of scams or attacks or identity fraud. So, there's a lot of awareness campaigns going around as well. But at the same time, you'll see probably a lot more phishing targeted attacks, and it's not just like at Optus. It'll be the broader sort of you've got an identity of an individual that you could utilize for many types of different exploits. So it could be online phishing scams. It could be more government targeted attacks. So that's where I think a lot more awareness will definitely help create a bit more sort of diligence between individuals, making sure, hey, I've got a message. Is this legit? Getting this phone call, just being a bit more mindful of where you're sharing your data. So, it's scary. Like, so much can be done with all that data, right? It could be, one, definitely be sold on the dark web. Secondly, a lot of phishing scams and targeted attacks. And then thirdly, it just depends to the extent of what they could do, like from a business point of view as well.
Yeah, Matt, I'm interested to know, cyber insurance is something which, probably has been around a long time, but in terms of the awareness is not prominent, but getting more prominent by the day from a startup or a FinTech's point of view, and building an organisation and their insurance needs. I mean, where does it sit now? Is it expensive, as you mentioned? And what can people do, I suppose, if in the event that they feel like they might have got a threat from someone or someone's data might be at risk?
Yeah, no, good point. I mean, in terms of take-up, I think last year there was about $200 million in premium paid for cyber insurance, and about $33 billion worth of losses. So in the grand scheme of things, there's not enough take-up. There's not enough people actually protecting their business. And we thoroughly think it's a combined effort with, people like, Paul and Entersoft of, kind of getting your business in a position where you're mitigating the losses as well as possible, in terms of the way you're structuring your data protection. And the insurance it's like a last resort. It's like, if all those things have gone wrong, you've got that that stopgap there to help bring in the business interruption costs that have affected your business, or recreating data that third parties have lost. We're hearing now that from insurers and underwriters out of Lloyd's and the local market that it's best to get the insurance in place now, because when the premiums will start increasing, and they will, it's a lot easier to negotiate a smaller rise of a renewal than try and take out a new policy. Two parts. Start looking at it now, looking at what you're putting in place, and then partnering with some kind of cybersecurity firm to run through. If I present an underwriter with a vulnerability penetration report, run through their multi-factor authentication they've got in, their endpoint processes, it's going to be much more positive outcome in terms of a well-structured program for a reasonable premium, as opposed to half an application form with a few guesses.
Yeah, that's right. I think from the process point of view as a business owner, though, ignorance is one word, but education is also another word around how safe, what am I doing, what are the steps I'm doing in terms of protecting the data. And there's a lot of reliance on big tech and web hosting platforms, etc. But where do people fit? How vulnerable are they? I mean, Paul, could you sort of give some guidance on what people should potentially be doing in terms of vulnerability checks or audits, etc., along the year, and what tools are out there to kind of help business owners feel comfortable that they may not have to go down the, obviously have insurance, but may not have to actually end up using it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So if you look at the speed of innovation and tech and products that are being built and released, security plays a pivotal role in that. But at the same time, it's hard for organizations to understand, hey, what do I really need? There's so many products out in the market, there's so many services and things like that. But at the same time, there's a shortage in cyber as well, right? In resources and finding the right talent. So some of these products can be technically very hard to integrate. So you need the right people to be on board to help you integrate that kind of stuff. But from where we come in, it's more focused heavily on that application and development lifecycle. So being able to integrate security into your DevOps lifecycle, being able to reduce the vulnerabilities while you're developing so that your end product is more secure. At the same time, it's having multiple things in place. It's not just application security or doing penetration testing. From a compliance point of view, so I'll probably just sidetrack. From a compliance point of view, penetration testing is only required annually. I think that's probably, things like that are a bit of a downfall in the ecosystem, where there's not pushing sort of more you could say more mature processes into sort of the life cycle of building products. But that's all going to come with time. So we're always developing, releasing code, say on a weekly or monthly basis. Banks or larger tech companies are releasing code on a daily basis, but you got to make sure you got the right checks and balances in place. So rather than doing things annually, how can you look at things which make you more mature, be more proactive rather than reactive? So there's a lot of tools out there in the market. There's a lot of products, services, but I think it's getting the basics right, understanding the fundamentals, understanding what's your biggest asset and how you protect that. So a lot of fintechs, it's really the data and information that they store, and being able to protect their consumers is quite important. And there's various ways to do that. You got to look at your cloud security. You got to look at your application security. You got to look at your internal policies, processes. Then look at things like insurance, like Matt mentioned. So there's a broad range of things that can be looked into, but it's just a matter of finding what's critical and addressing those things and sort of creating a roadmap. It's something that can't be achieved overnight, but gradually getting there.
And do you think that's sort of leveraged again with the application forms from an insurance point of view and what the underwriters look at? Is it the quantum of data, the number of people that sign up for you? If you've got 10 customers versus 10 million customers, are you still as vulnerable, do you think, or is it purely a numbers game and the hackers or whoever wants to infiltrate that data just wants as much information as possible?
I totally agree. I think it all depends. Like the numbers might play one part of it, but I think the industry that they're in, if they're in kind of medical or financial services, there's a real appeal there, and Paul could probably speak better.
So industry verticals,
yeah, exactly, where it's a much higher value.
I'm just being really, really ignorant here. What would someone want with my medical records? Like if my medical records were obtained by you as a hacker, what's the big deal? I mean, I know it's a big deal, but what I'm just trying to deep dive here.
So typically, like depending on what data they obtained with it, it'd be sold on the dark web. So they'd be able to get, say, a couple of dollars a record or something. So when you're talking millions, you're talking a big
significant amount of money.
Big payday, right?
Yeah. So they don't want to know about my left hammy, like specifically.
You never know. You never know who's out there.
Yeah.
It could be your opposition soccer team or something. It's doing a bit of due
sports betting
diligence.
companies, on the 7th division of touch football.
Yeah. It's just, you'd be surprised the use cases that are out there. But the biggest is just being able to resell the data, create sort of fake, fraudulent identity, things like that. So, and then
the identity theft, it can be for bank accounts, can be for travel, can be for all this. And so, as a consumer out there, there's obviously Optus were inundated with calls about what's my data, where has it gone? Probably no one really knows the answer to that, but then it's sort of like, what can I do now? Am I scared of giving data out now permanently to large organisations? Are people more skeptical of that?
Definitely, and I think it's a good thing in a way as well, because now the community is going to question where the data is going. Right, as an individual, you want to know where is it going, who's holding it, is it being protected, and it goes down to the whole privacy side of things as well. And so I think it's good because it creates awareness, which then pushes back on businesses to be trying to do the right thing to protect consumer information.
Yep, and then from an insurance point of view, on the economic side of things, I mean, the ransoms that people, or is that the insurance claim per se? Is it all to do with the ransom, or is it to do with other factors in terms of breach?
No, good question. And it's usually broken down into two parts, what they call first party and third party. So, if your system's locked down and hackers have your data, and then they say, look, you need to pay this ransom to get your data back, or we'll sell it to oppositions, or, you just won't be able to run your business. The insurance will then cover the lost income that your business has sustained. And then third party is then if, you've got clients or customers who have had, data leaked out, the costs of, forensic accountants coming in and trying to recreate that data, reputational kind of damage cover, just getting, the business and your third parties back to kind of where it was before the loss.
Yeah, right. And so from a FinTech point of view, or FinTech founders point of view, they should be aware of cybersecurity, be thinking about it. If they do business practices and do checks and get experts in to kind of help them along the way in terms of guiding them into where they feel like they're up to speed or coherent with what's going on. And then from an insurance point of view, getting in quotes and looking at making sure and being guided as to what potential interruptions could happen, how they could happen, and what the cost is. And I suppose from the cost point of view, as we've talked about, the increasing premiums and increasing awareness of the industry will only probably go one way. Are there many providers here in Australia that do this now? Do the big insurers do it? Are they thinking about doing it?
Look, I think they're all moving in that direction. There are some specialist insurers, who are trying to take the front foot approach on that. There's certainly the identity theft side of things that you mentioned with the Optus, but social engineering is probably like a big area that we're seeing a lot of claims at. Ransomware has increased about 800% in an insurance claims perspective. A lot of this is post-COVID as well, or since COVID established. You've gone from working in a big kind of a company with IT infrastructure that's supplied by the business, and you've got tech support and the like to everyone kind of running with their own laptop from home, and no real kind of security checks and balances just to keep the business operational. So on the back of that, there was a massive increase in that. But it's an education piece, I think, for a lot of businesses, just to explain to staff and newcomers, about checking the right emails and not clicking on dodgy links, and understanding the kind of the way that just how to protect themselves even further.
And then from that, in regards to, as you mentioned, the scams, I see some news.com.au headline about someone was arrested for getting that data and trying to scam people. The sophistication, probably from my point of view, of a text message received from a brand you automatically think, oh, that's the brand, but it's not the brand. What do consumers need to look out for? And I suppose the line's getting a little bit blurry in terms of what's real and what's not real anymore. So people probably just don't answer, don't accept, do nothing to anything.
Yeah. That's a very good question, and we see this a lot in the crypto space as well, like from a phishing and impersonation point of view. But like from a domain perspective, you can have a million different iterations of say Optus.com, but it's just paying more attention to like the domain and the URL. Is there like a dot on top of the U or something like that? The slightest changes, and being more diligent in how you approach your digital activities. And before you click on a link, did you sign up for this? Is this a brand that you connected with? Have you shared information with them in past? And then I think worst comes to worst, make a phone call to that party if they're requesting certain.
Which is kind of like in its own right a backward step of like they sent the text messages out not to have a call center and support.
Yeah,
and it's like they get more calls in going, oh well, that's not the point anymore. Are you real? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
But I think there's been hundreds of those conversations.
Yeah,
like,
correct.
Is this like my flight has changed? Is this Qantas or whatever it might be? Like, I'm just picking up brands here.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a phone call, but it's like you want to make sure that whoever you're dealing with is real, right? So it's just being very diligent on your activities, not just clicking on a link or paying attention to what you're receiving and being more aware of what your digital presence is, right? Like, you get bombarded with phone calls, text messages. I get so many phone calls from the ATM.
Well, I just got one from you before, and I didn't know it was real. I was like, "Oh, is this Paul?" Yeah, it's Paul. Okay, hello. Could have been a scammer.
Could have been, yeah.
Right?
You don't know, right? It is very.
And they're getting local. I noticed, like I'm getting a lot of Brisbane-based numbers now. So that's sort of geolocated, targeted to something.
That's pretty easy to do. I guess it's just being aware.
You get a few
right?
phone calls a day.
I get way too many a day. Yeah.
You get what about?
Well, 100%. Yeah. I think Linked has been one that I've been getting a lot of text messages from recently. The toll
road.
Linked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real or not real?
I haven't clicked on it, so I'm guessing not really. I pay my tolls, so
the dilemma for business.
When
you pay your tolls and you think it's okay, but
100%,
but therein itself lies the dilemma, I suppose, for business owners to go, is our brand at risk here, of being a...
Yeah, and it's important to protect your brand, right? So, and there's proactive services and products out there which can do online monitoring for fake websites and things like that. But when it comes to social media, a lot of that has to be sort of driven internally by a business to make sure that no one's copying their brand on Facebook or Instagram and things like that as well. So there's just so much to be aware of. And like I said, you got to understand what's critical for you as a business and what's important and how do you address those points. The best part for fintechs or early stage companies is they're starting from ground up. So they've got a clean slate. They can implement like a cybersecurity culture first versus companies that established themselves like 30, 40 years ago, have got 10,000 plus employees. They're sort of reversing cyber back into it. So I think that's a plus side.
Yeah, that's a good point. You go.
They're probably keen to actually get it established right from the start in the current kind of environment as
infrastructure in place, ready to go. But I've got one final question in regards to the directors of these companies. I mean, should they be nervous in and around what has happened with Optus and what potential could there be some liability in sort of in and around outside what potential payouts and claims, etc.?
Yeah, certainly. Look, like you said before, like the reputational damage that can happen in the business, it kind of veers more into the directors and officers kind of insurance channel there. But it's something that potential shareholders or investors would be certainly questioning pretty heavily. Why that wasn't looked into or addressed kind of beforehand. We've seen some kind of recent cyber claims where they've got into a system and not done anything for 3 to 6 months, and they've just tried to find company docs, they've tried to find P&L sheets, they've checked the calendars, they've seen when the CFO is going to be on holidays, and then pretended to be the CFO, emailing the CEO saying, "Hey, I need you to fix up this invoice," and it'll be
very sophisticated,
absolutely very sophisticated, yeah. And so keeping, I think it was just because the CFO had said had not said please in terms of getting the payment transferred, that someone picked up and said, hey, that's a bit odd. You wouldn't talk to one of your colleagues without saying please. So
it was well picked up, obviously.
It was picked up, yeah. It was an $80,000 transaction. So it's just those little things.
Or a capital letter or a up lowercase letter. It's not out of the norm. Spelling mistakes. Out of the norm behaviour.
Signatures, yeah.
Yep. So back to the old phone. Pick up the phone to the CFO and say, "Did you send this email?" No, I didn't.
Exactly what happened. Yeah.
Definitely when it's internal. 100%. I think that's process. You should confirm if there's the slightest of doubt. You
no matter what dollar value amount. I mean,
exactly.
Because I suppose one they get away with one can get away with another, and it's even if it's $300, it could be done 15 times or 100%. Whatever it might be. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, for coming in and having a chat about cybersecurity and insurance and putting the two together for fintechs that want to pay attention to what is happening. And certainly from a consumer point of view, the attention that it grabbed is, as Paul mentioned, an education process around what is happening, why, where is our data going, what are the processes in place from businesses. Appreciate you guys coming in to Brisbane here on a moderately rainy day, and look forward to catching up with both of you at social functions, predominantly FinTech Australia social functions, which I've caught up with you a number of times, but look forward to coming in and having a chat again.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the FinTech Australia podcast. I'm your host, Chris Titley. The FinTech Australia podcast is a collaboration between FinTech Australia and Sub 11. For more information about membership options, news and the events coming up, jump on to the FinTech Australia website. Have a great day. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.